Hello and a very warm welcome to Bharata First. I'm Frank Razum Pereira. You're watching Big Picture. And since you're here, I would like to thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs a daily Big Picture quiz. Please do participate by going through the description in Big Picture videos. Here are the UPI IDs for those of you who would like to come forward and contribute. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. So do continue to show your love and support. All the information is in the description of this video along with some must-see recommendations. So please go through it. Well, now on to the discussion. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on Wednesday approved the increase in minimum support prices for all mandated Kharif crops for marketing season 2021-22. The MSP of paddy has been increased by 72 rupees per quintal from 1,868 rupees per quintal in 2020-21 to 1,940 rupees per quintal in 2021-22. The highest absolute increase in MSP over the previous year has been recommended for sesamum, that is 452 rupees per quintal, followed by tur and urad, which is 300 rupees per quintal each. The increase comes during the ongoing farmers' protest against three contentious farm laws passed last year. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the Union Cabinet's decision to increase MSP for Kharif crops. Joining me on the program today are Dr. P. Pulla Rao, economist, Dr. Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary, Government of India, and T.K. Arun, consulting editor of the Economic Times. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Mr. Dua, let me start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand and analyze the decision of the Union Cabinet to increase MSP, especially for all Kharif crops. How would you look at this decision?
Frank, I'm not surprised, and this is not something which has happened, which is unusual. Every year, the cabinet does undertake this exercise of revisiting the MSP, both for the Kharif, that's the summer crop, forthcoming, done in anticipation of the crop, so that it could perhaps help out the harvesting and the market surplus working out, etc. Not necessarily, it should have been done actually at the cost of, at the time of sowing. That means even the sowing pattern should have been affected, but that for whether COVID or certain other reasons have been delayed. So this is a routine activity, I would say, revising the MSP for Kharif as well as Rabi crops. What I was expecting was actually a much larger increase than what has been effected. The reason being, one, there is still some headroom available from the recommendation of the Swaminathan Committee, which the government has avoidably accepted, number of times made public statements to it. And second, it is a full-fledged acceptance which says not just merely the direct cost, but what is called in Swaminathan Committee up to C3. That means the imputed costs of labor, the following of, etc. Everything included, the government had said 50% more profit allowed, and there is room for it. There was room for it, but given the fiscal situation of the government, one can understand, and that this constant increase, I hope, in favor of the farmers. I'm calling it a support to the farming community, not necessarily MSP as it exists, but the farmers of India, like most countries of the world, certainly need to be supported much more than they have been so far. We'll discuss that.
Absolutely. We'll come to that and we'll discuss that as well. In the meantime, let me bring in T.K. Arun. Mr. Dua has called it a routine exercise, but this comes in the backdrop of what we've seen as the farmers' protests and everything being held hostage, really. So there was a political message that needed to be sent out through this, and the government has sent out a political message also, haven't they, Arun?
See, as Mr. Dua said, raising MSP is a fairly routine affair. MSP per se is meaningless unless backed up with procurement. It is procurement that really gives teeth to MSP. The government routinely announces MSP for nearly 2 dozen crops, procures hardly 5-6 of these crops. So the rest, the MSP announcement is just so much, noise, airwaves being disturbed. Otherwise, it doesn't make a difference. Now, the government will, till this agitation is over, continue to announce not only ever higher MSP and also procure heavily. So I think this is not surprising at all. It is to be expected given the politics of the farm agitation, given the laws in West Bengal, given the nervousness in Uttar Pradesh over the performance of the Yogi Adityanath government, and the lead the farmers of Western UP have taken in the farmers agitation of late. I was not at all surprised that the government has raised the MSP, and I'm sure it will carry out the procurement also. But just note, India is today the world's largest exporter of rice. The average price for export of rice is around 1,350 rupees per quintal, whereas our procurement price is around 1,850 rupees. So we are actually exporting rice at a highly subsidized rate because our domestic prices are now way above international prices, globally traded prices. So there is a case for revamping our entire production structure in agriculture, of changing the way MSP is carried out. Actually, the solution, as I said in the past, is to actually change the crop mix. People have to switch over from producing more and more of rice and wheat to other crops, of which there is a shortage in this country. We are needlessly cultivating more and more rice and wheat, accumulating in the government granaries, allowing it to go to rot. Only because of this COVID pandemic and the need to distribute relief has the government been able to make some good use of the huge amounts of stockpiles of grain we have. We have 100 million tons of grain in our stockpile. This is just sheer waste of uh, human productive energy of this country's scarce resources and of the farmers' resources. So we need to revamp this. So the political things that the government has made no effort to revamp our procurement policy of our product mix and to incentivize farmers to move away from producing more of grain to other crops.
Absolutely. I think this is a very valid point. I'm going to take this up with you, Mr. Dua, in just a bit. Let me go across to Dr. Pullarao also in the meantime. So, Dr. Pullarao, as far as this whole MSP issue is concerned, the farmers' agitation and everything that is attached to it, how would you look at this issue?
Well, basically, as Mr. Dua said, it's an ongoing exercise. I mean, nothing to be surprised about. And there's also nothing surprising that they would raise it marginally, 3%, 5%. And of course, everything is political. A government's actions, all actions have to be political. A democratic government can't operate in a void that we are taking decisions sitting in a ministry. Their antenna are up and they have to look around. They have to placate sections. They have to continue the dependency, which has already been going around, especially this minimum support price of states like Punjab and Haryana, which are the major beneficiaries of this scheme. And therefore, it's not surprising to that extent. But if you want to go on a little ahead and say, is this in any way going to help double farmers' incomes? Not even by 2022, as government has set target. Will it bring prosperity to farmers? Will it that 45% to 50% of the people they say are dependent on agriculture, and yet they contribute only 17 to 20% of the GDP? Yes, it will be a great boost if you can increase farmers' incomes. But definitely, this is not the way to increase farmers' incomes. The immediate statistics are not available with me. The first plan, second plan, the way agriculture got a boost in this country, because nothing was ever done for maybe a century after the ancient anicuts were built and all that. But after that, other interests started taking the attention of the government and the demands of a democracy. Therefore, as far as I can see, minimum support price is a kind of ritual, which I would say, though, people will definitely question me. Are the farmers that innocent to say that if we get a minimum support price, we are happy? Are they led to believe that in Punjab and Haryana and Western UP? I don't know. You see the southern farmers and maybe Western farmers, nobody is coming and nobody is participating except some token leaders some letterpad organizations from the south that we support it. There's absolutely no involvement, if I may say, in this thing. So therefore, minimum support price is okay, but it is making some political constituencies happy. Continues a dependency which has been created, that government and the bureaucracy are giving something, minimum support price. But the fact is, the way you calculate the costs of production are totally out of sync with reality. So farmers are told this is your cost of production and this is the 50% we are giving, so it doesn't work. The figures are not properly done. So it continues, but it will not achieve major change or attack the structural problems which are going on in agriculture. Some other solutions may be necessary, but as a political message, it has come at the right time. It will create confusion on the minds of those who thought MSP is gone. So it has some use for the government, some use for the farmers, but not a great amount of use for agriculture or for the economy. Just one point. Everybody knows that oil seeds are shortage production. Everybody knows we have immense amount of land, arable land fit for oil seed cultivation. Why are they increasing the minimum support price for oil seeds to a very big extent so that people will switch over?
Let's talk about this aspect of changing the crop mix. This was something that Mr. Arun raised in his opening remarks. Is there a reluctance from the farmers' side? Do you believe that we need to incentivize it? Is there a problem with regards to the policy? What is the real issue? Because we don't seem to be moving away from these 4 or 5 crops.
Frank, just to put record right, we are 21 crops as of now covered by the central minimum support price scheme, and in addition, there could be state government sponsored programs for a limited number of crops relevant for them. We are now today talking about the central MSP scheme, I presume, but that's in those 21 crops, the dominance of wheat and rice is huge, and that was bound to be, because these are the 2 staple diets of the country, the staple crops of the country. But their importance in the scheme of things over time has certainly declined. At one time, when we had to wait for the PL 480 ships to arrive, I'm talking of the 60s and until the late 60s and early 70s, it was a different thing. It had to be wheat. It could be any kind of wheat from wherever the Americans could send us, or we could get other international aid. The importance of these 2 staples has to come down undoubtedly, because even the consumption pattern is moving away from them in favor of more, proteins, more kind of nutritious food, as the incomes in the country have gone up, and rightly so. Second, I would say these crops are not necessarily grown all over the country. Both the crops need a fair amount of water. So they are either in the areas which have assured irrigation, assured rainfall, or have assured irrigation, the surface irrigation facilities, which makes them actually now 7 or 8 states accounting for most of this crop, most of these 2 crops, whereas the farmers are all over the country, and probably the farmers outside these 7 or 8 states are poorer, and they need larger support, much more support, and then the richer farmers of better off lands, or better off weather and the better off lands. Finally, I would just make one comment here and leave it to my distinguished panelists to comment, that I am actually against the idea of open-ended procurement, saying any amount of crop which you bring to of the 21 crops, whatever amount you bring, the government will buy it. It is not possible right now, since the government's PDS-1 system, for which the MSP, you see, the system started off MSP much more on how to feed the people, that means to take care of the PDS in the 60s, than per se as a measure of relief to the farmers. Today, the PDS certainly needs, but also the PDS or the 800 million people on the PDS. They don't necessarily need what the government is procuring and giving them. They need support. So I would say that we need to revisit this entire scheme of MSP, which started on an ad hoc basis in the 60s for a purpose altogether different from what it is required today, and look at it whether all options, whether the government should be giving one, as I just mentioned, open-ended, procure everything. Second, should the government be actually procuring physically the crops and then incurring huge costs? FCI is, after all, government, and the taxpayers' money gets utilized. That it is done very inefficiently, and like any government agency, it cannot be expected to, when you are asking it to marry several objectives in its performance, the compromise is efficiency. That instead, is it better to pass on support to the greater support to the farmer, depending upon the size of the farm holding, depending upon whether it is irrigated land, semi-irrigated, or dry land, because after all, it's a welfare measure, and the farming, as Dr. Purla Rao mentioned so eloquently, with 42% of the population in the last census clearly still dependent upon agriculture, which is a huge number. That means your 55 crore people out of 130 are still dependent upon agriculture. Absolutely. As a livelihood. And apart from the food security angle, this is also an extremely, and we don't want to change the cultural ethos of the country. We remain an agricultural economy. Culture, our household culture, all those things are tied to the land, and I don't think it's possible, the way China may have done, to have shifted them to the urban areas, etc. That's something extremely far off, and I'm not even sure desirable. So let me just stop by saying, yes, the crops need to be changed, the extent of subsidy needs to be changed, but support to agriculture must remain. On that, I have no ambiguity in my mind how it should be structured. Because question is, I'll just say this last bit, that the productivity of land in India continues to be amongst the lowest. Should we be subsidizing inputs much more equitably, not people cornering away the inputs, whether it is power, water, or fertilizer, or those kind of things? Or should we be doing it actually in the support price mechanism or market support, and then whether it should be actually paying them the money, or is it giving them an option that you for a certain amount of your X crop, we will be buying it. For some other crop which is more nutritious, more relevant, we could say we will take 50%, 60%. Sure. Wheat or this, we will take only 20%, or rice, we will take 25%. Those kind of things need to be visited when we are talking about MSP going forward.
Absolutely. Talking about MSP and going forward, let's go back and let's talk about MSP. TK Arun, do you believe that MSP has outlived its utility, or it's still extremely relevant even today, 60 years later?
See, MSP has a certain utility even going forward. However, as I said, MSP without being backed by procurement is fairly meaningless. Right? Unless the government actually buys at the MSP, what is the point of just announcing a price? There is no procurement in Bihar. So while the procurement price for the government is around 1,800 odd rupees per quintal, in Bihar, traders buy it at 1,300 to 1,400 rupees per quintal, transport it to Punjab, and there in the mandis sell it to the procurement agencies at a much higher price and reap a huge margin. So actually, procurement is the key, not just announcing a random MSP.
And your thoughts on open procurement?
Yeah, no, we have to stop open-ended procurement. Actually, the government's entire move in issuing the 3 controversial farm laws was to put an end to open-ended procurement. But when you're changing your policy, you're shifting farmers from one policy paradigm to another. you have to take into account their situation, how they will be plunged into uncertainty, what guarantee they have their income. So the government first needs to have created a system for incentivizing farmers to shift away from these crops for which MSP is done and announced and procurement is carried out, to other kinds of crops to which we still import heavily. Now, I mean, our entire agricultural system is all screwed up. You have sugarcane being cultivated in Maharashtra, which is very dry, arid Deccan plateau. You give subsidy for water, for power to pump water, you give subsidy to fertilizer, and you grow sugarcane. Chennai, Tamil Nadu fights with Karnataka for water every year, and that water is used for what? Growing sugarcane, the most water intensive crop. You have the Indo-Gangetic Plain, which is probably the world's most best suited place for growing sugarcane, and you can't grow it in Bihar because no sugar factory can come up because there is no law and order, and cane cannot be cut and stored and transported because it will dry up and the sugar recovery will drop sharply. So the sugarcane has to be grown somewhere near the sugar mill. So our the ability to plant crops which are ideally suited agroclimatically speaking for that crop is completely constrained and messed up with the incentives the government has created through subsidy, procurement, and water policies. Secondly, every WTO negotiations, India is seen as a deal breaker because we'll say we'll continue with the food subsidy. It is a question of our farmers, our people's, sustenance, and we cannot compromise on food subsidy. What we need to do is to reconfigure our subsidy. Farmers need support. You give the money as income support. Income support is not part of the WTO debate. The money that you give to farmers as income support is not considered as trade distorting subsidy. Whereas the kind of subsidy we give, you procure grain at a very fancy price, high price, and then you reimburse the Food Corporation of India for procuring at this fancy price and then selling to the state civil society corporations at a much lower price. That difference is paid to FCI as the food subsidy. Then you are seen to be trade distorting. So if you could use the same money as income support to farmers, and we stop procuring 100 million tons of grain when we actually require only 40 million tons of grain, then we'll be saving money, we'll be having a more efficient system of farming, and we'll be rid of this problem with the WTO. But this requires political will. But the first step is to actually wean farmers away from growing more and more wheat and grain. So I think we need to have the political will to openly accept that open-ended procurement of grain is not neither desirable nor feasible. And then we have to get farmers to switch to other crops, and you must give them incentive, you must give them support. Just as you got the farmers of Punjab and Haryana to adopt the high yield varieties of wheat and rice in the 1960s to become self-sufficient in food grain production in this country. Today, you need to move them away from these crops to other crops. Perhaps farmers in Punjab can grow fruit, they can grow flowers, perhaps they can grow cotton, they can grow any number of other things for which the country still requires a huge amount of external dependence. Why are we eating apples brought from Australia? Why don't we grow apple grown in this country? Of course, apple cannot be grown in Punjab, but I'm saying there are so much of stuff that we can still produce in this country for which there is no need to import. Only if only our policy system allowed crops to be diversified, to be move away from rice and wheat. And we need to move to a policy of income support. And there are innovations like this nano fertilizer that IFFCO has come out with. IFFCO has come out with a liquid urea, which is made of nanoparticles, where half a liter bottle of urea will deliver the same nutrient value to crops as 1 ton or 145 kilo bag of normal urea fertilizer. So these kind of innovations are also possible, which will actually lower the cost of production and increase the yield for farmers. So this has to be a multifaceted approach to agriculture. And just by hiking MSP or lowering MSP, you don't actually change the fate of our farmers or Indian agriculture.
Absolutely, very rightly said. And since we are here, then Dr. Pullarao, let's also talk about other methods in which we can help our entire farming community. What more needs to be done, both from a policy level as well as what needs to be what needs to be done on the ground.
Well, straight away, we can quote Mr. Arun and Mr. Duval, some of the things they have said. You get the best possible way to help farmers, though it's very new in our country. You're giving farmers direct cash transfer. Hardly started 2, 3 years ago. Farmers were outside this cash transfer. Farmers were outside this income support for many years because it was felt they did not fit into that socio-economic group which qualifies for such assistance, or their constituency was really very, it's a dispersed constituency, farmers. They don't speak in a single voice. It's not a vote bank. So people know that farmers will not vote in this way or that way. They are dispersed. So considering all of that, one of the best things would be to do is give income support cash transfer. The more you give them, I think it's also necessary to think that farmers can think for themselves, make a good choice. If you, for example, I'm just quoting it, you should give universally to all farmers. This kind of thing of rich farmers, according to our law, no farmer can have more than 35 acres. Maybe a few have bogus accounts, but say in Andhra Pradesh and other places, I know that law is fairly vibrant. It is obeyed, land reforms. And to that extent, they should be universally, you should give farmers money so that they decide for themselves. Second, instead of going on, there's a certain amount of policy inertia maybe, that this is being done for last many years. Agriculture Prices Commission, they said this, they said that. It's going on. But the crop diversification, high income crops, change of crops, and I might go a little more than what Mr. Arun said about sugarcane. Believe me, rice, India is not suitable for rice cultivation. We are not on the equator. Also, sugarcane. These are not agroclimatically, they're not suitable. But yes, some pockets are suitable where there's a delta area, where there's high rainfall in Kerala, Kutanad, all of that. But generally, if you take high production, you go along the equator, you have Indonesia, Malaysia, or even Zanzibar, all that area in South America, the north of it, you have sugarcane there, etc. High yields are coming there. Rice in Thailand, Vietnam, very naturally they are able to produce. Should we go to a more agroclimatic crop pattern? Should government at least encourage that? We have huge, the Himalayan area. What is that? What are the Andeans exporting? The crops from Andes, high value crops, high value seeds, cereals. So that kind of thing, I think government is not devoting enough time, except setting targets. And since fisheries is also part of agriculture, they set a target, we must export $10 billion or $11 billion, not considering that there is limits on these things. Therefore, we require new policies. That inertia, doing the same thing every year repeatedly, you'll get the same results. You see, unless if you want a different outcome, you must do things differently. Quoting Barack Obama, of course. So you keep doing the same thing, and then you say you're going to double incomes, or farmers are going to be happy. They won't go over to the cities because they're selling their lands fast. Punjab, everywhere, the fragmentation of agricultural holdings. So I firmly believe that government should think of new policies to tackle the present situation, and with the main focus on income enhancement. And that I think they're not perhaps doing it as much as they can, and there is a need for that, and there's no need for these agitations so the income goes up. Farmers have been progressive in many things, so I think it's time to kind of go in for getting new startups are given so much importance in other sectors. Government supports them, private sector supports them, but as far as agriculture is concerned, I don't think they got into that trajectory, getting into new things. It's time. Just consider Holland, 16,000 or 17,000 farmers, and they're the largest agriculture exporter in the world. Holland, much more than, many, many times more than us. Can we imitate some of their policies here? So there's a large thing to be done, and India would become prosperous if you go by a little different path.
Absolutely. Think differently and do something different is what Mr. Pullarao is suggesting. Time now to get quick closing comments from all my panelists with the best way forward, starting first with you, Mr. Dua.
I'm one with my colleague panelist on the fact that you must have a discriminating support policy for different categories of farmers. The rich farmer who's already got, whether because of inheritance or otherwise he has larger holdings, has to be discriminated from a person, the average holding in India, which is of below 2 hectares per household. So the Land Ceiling Act, fine, 54 acres in Maharashtra, somewhere else 36 acres, etc. That is, I would say, people have got around it, we all know that, but yet that is those guys who are at the top end of this land ceiling are different from the bottom and the average Indian farmer. Second, the support to agriculture must now get limited to where it is desirable. Very clearly, we cannot afford to give water guzzling crops or the farmers same extent of support as people who are living on, for whom dry farming is the way forward, because neither is surface irrigation capable of coming there, and they can do very little about the place where there are rainfall and its vagaries, etc. Having said that, I would still say that in order to get productivity higher, those people who are so-called at the slightly higher end of the agriculture spectrum, the support to them has to be by in terms of R&D, in terms of, we need a second green revolution in the country, which will support the commercial crops, which will support the high nutrition crops, and there, irrespective of whether it is a small farmer or a big, the centralized research, costly, it might, I'm not talking of necessarily the, in terms of genetics changing of the crops, etc., but certainly there is need for newer varieties, the inputs which are required for them, and largely to give them a support, indirect marketing support to the guy who wants to sell sugarcane. His support is the support which actually a sugarcane farmer, and I come from Maharashtra, is the guy needs a road to be available from his farm to go to the nearest sugar mill. Today, cooperative sector does it. It does it on political considerations, because cooperatives are a political manifestation, etc. But those kind of common facilities, he needs certainly better access to power. Power does not have to be necessarily the conventional power. Why not in support to him of moving to solar-based power, solar power pumps? Those kind of things, the centralized are done far better, particularly when you are evolving the matters, the technologies and others, whereas direct support, including Prime Minister Kisan program, I think cut off the people who have more than 10 acres of land. They don't need it. Cut off the people who are growing sugarcane or cotton. There is no need for them. Instead, use that money to raise it from 6,000 rupees to 12,000 rupees or 15,000 rupees for the smaller farmer in dry farming area. For him, this is his last resort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would like to see discrimination on such basis.
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid point that you made. Let's see who is going to bell the cat, because that's the biggest question. TK Arun.
See, the solution to rural distress lies not in rural areas, but actually in towns. No country has prospered with the majority of its people living in villages. Countries prosper when urbanization increases, more and more people shift from producing yield out of the ground into manufacturing and organized services. And that is how, when jobs are created in services and industry, that people shift from village to town. And this shift itself drives rural incomes to go up. The per capita productivity goes up because there are fewer people toiling away in agriculture. Why do we need marginal farmers who struggle with less than 2 hectares of land? We don't. We need people to move out of such marginal subhuman existence to more productive, fulfilling lives outside agriculture. And we need larger consolidated farms where our agriculture can actually be productive, competitive with the rest of the world. And we need forward linkages between the farm and the consumer, where the farmer himself has command over part of the value added. Food processing industry. Suppose farmers could have actually form a cooperative and form, desiccation of onions. So every year we have an onion shortage. Why? Because you don't have a system of formally, adding value to this, the onions that we harvest and storing it in a fashion that it doesn't rot. We have limited storage capacity, so if anything is produced in excess of what can be stored, it just goes waste. It is thrown. Farmers have a huge problem. They will come down and protest. We need a proper agro processing industry where the crops that are produced can be transformed into storable forms and then distributed across the country. So there are, there are some of the things we need to do. We need to have more prosperity in cities so that people can move out of villages and come to town, reduces pressure on the rest of the people who stay there. We need a vibrant agro-processing industry that more value can be added to agriculture produce, and the farmers will get a larger share of that value added. And we need to have, as Mr. Rao said, farming where the crops are suited to the agroclimatic condition. And this has to be encouraged through various incentives. This will actually create a more prosperous India, not just prosperous farmers.
Absolutely. And Dr. Pulla Rao, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot to be done in agriculture. There are a lot of ideas. But as I have just mentioned, is there a kind of inertia as far as agriculture is concerned? At one time, maybe 20, 30 years ago, agriculture ministry was a very important ministry. Very, very important people in the cabinet. I believe Jagjeevan Ramji held it once, Kidwai, all stalwarts held it. Now it has come down, I think, in importance. Especially, and this is very odd, when we have 45% of the people dependent on agriculture and you're giving it very little importance. Perhaps, the political bodies or the media or the public opinion makers, they have to reflect that you can't have a sector of 45% people dragging down your incomes. Switch them over, or as Mr. Arun has said, if they go on to a manufacturing sector and other things, naturally the agricultural incomes of the other people will increase. But that has not been very successful. Though the government has tried to make in India and other things, that if China has increased incomes by setting up factories, why not India? But when you go back, and as Mr. Dua, if I understood correctly, said, there are many cultural factors involved here, many traditional factors involved here. People may not like to do it. So considering all of that, this is a field where you require a lot more thought than one member of Niti Aayog or the Planning Commission can give. This requires much more concentrated attention, and political will comes if there's political prestige attached to this subject. That this gets a bigger budget or gets other things, discretionary powers and ability to mobilize the farmers. Lots of things can be done, and India needs it. And we cannot downgrade agriculture. Look at this pandemic. It was the agriculture sector which worked full time, fed the country, enhanced exports, saw to it that the economy did not crash, if I may say so. Government boasts that they're giving 80 crore people food. That's all because of the farmers who risked a lot, irrespective of the pandemic. It has never been done in any other country to this extent, I believe. Therefore, this is a sector which should be cherished. This is a sector which requires more importance. Importance doesn't necessarily mean a little more money. It requires, acceptance that as long as agriculture is lagging, agriculture also includes, this fruits and other floriculture and marine products. And if this lags, the rest of the economy will not go into your 10% or $5 trillion economies. So it's time to give agriculture back its importance, as was done in 52 and 57 and the first and second 5-year plans. There is something which has to be done. And it's a very big answer. And we should all look for those answers. And it will help the economy, reduce poverty, bring social stability, and do a lot of other things. So we do hope agriculture gets more importance in the days to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that India has 100 million tons of stockpile of grains. We have to change our crop mix and cropping patterns. We also need changes in policies like input support, stop open procurement, and make a distinction between rich and poor farmers and not take them under the same basket for the government schemes. We need to follow an agroclimatic crop pattern, focus on high value crops, and move away from wheat and grains. That having been said, while undertaking all these reforms, the farmers' apprehensions must also be looked into. Just by increasing or decreasing MSP, we are not going to get desired results. We need a multifaceted approach. Innovations and technology are also extremely important. If all this is done, some tough measures are taken, we can indeed see true agriculture reforms. Once again, thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharat First team runs a daily Big Picture quiz. Please do participate by going through the description in Big Picture videos. Here are the UPI IDs for those of you who would like to come forward and contribute. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. So do continue to show your love and support because I need it now more so than ever. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of this video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.